welcome to Good Morning Gamer for Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. This is going to be a quick one, okay? So, the other day, Ubisoft announced, sort of unofficially, that Assassin's Creed Valhalla will be 30 frames a second. And all the console dudes went fucking ballistic. They're like, how can we have a next generation console that's only pushing 30 frames a second and not 60? I don't understand this. I don't get it. They have all the teraflops and all the power. We should be able to get 60 frames a second with every game. It should be the standard, folks. I don't understand. This is fucking bullshit. They're going fucking nuts. And I'm like, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking about all the PC dudes I know that have more than one video card in their machine. They got 32 gigs of RAM. I'm thinking about Freddy. I'm thinking about Social Gamer. I'm thinking about all the PC heads out there and the struggle it takes to get 4K 60 frames per second sustained on a PC. It's expensive and it's a struggle. It's even more of a struggle on PC than it is on console, just because there's so many different systems and so many different configurations, so many different drivers and cards and motherboards and BIOS. There's so many factors involved. It's so hard to get that on PC. I'm happy getting my 2K 60, 1080p, but 2K resolution. So instead of 1920 by 1080, it's 2560 by 1080, as opposed to 3096 by whatever the 4K resolution typically is. I just love how they go from 1080, which is 1920 by 1080, to 4K, when it's really not 4K, because you're just talking about vertical versus horizontal resolution. So anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. It's just the way they name shit's just funny. Like, even though I'm 2K resolution, I'm still 1080p, because while my horizontal resolution increased, my vertical resolution stayed the same. But anyway, it's a struggle for me. Most of my games at 2K are 60 frames per second. Sometimes I see dips below 60. I'll see like 53 or 56. But a lot of times, if the game isn't locked at 60, I'll go above that. I'll go 75, 90. Some games I'll hit 120 frames a second, because each game isn't optimized for my PC. They're generally optimized to run on a certain set of hardware. But anyway, that's besides the point. It is a struggle for PC gamers to get 4K 60. I would like to remind you of a couple things. This goes to any PlayStation or Xbox team member out there, any bot or pony, any console gamer. To you console gamers, that years ago, when I was saying everybody needs to get a PC, you said PCs were too expensive, you have to upgrade them every year, I like to game in my living room, I don't want to sit at my desk. All the fucking same excuses we heard years ago. Now all of a sudden everybody has a PC, right? So we kept hearing all these dudes say, I'll just get the game on PC anyway. I'll just get the game on PC. Everybody has a gaming PC capable of playing all these current next-gen titles, yet you're complaining about Ubisoft saying their next game is going to be 30 frames per second on console. Let me just shed a little light on you guys, okay? This is a spontaneous Good Morning Gamer. I didn't expect to do one. I was waiting for bigger news than this to be able to do a show. But since you guys are out here crying and you don't know shit, I'm here to shed some light on some things. First off, let's talk last gen. How the fuck can you expect next gen to be a standard 60 frames per second at 4K resolution when 60 frames per second at 1080p wasn't even the standard last gen? I'd like to remind you that your god, Mark Cerny, said, get used to 1080p 60 gaming. I'll never forget that day. I watched that PlayStation conference, and he said that, and I typed in the chat, I'm throwing money at the screen. okay? Because he said get used to 1080p 60. And we drank that fucking Kool-Aid. It was the fucking orange flavor. We drank the fuck out of that Kool-Aid. PlayStation 4 comes out. Where's the 1080p 60 gaming? Fucking Killzone wasn't 1080 60. That was a whole issue. People sued Sony over that. Xbox couldn't do 1080p 60. Bots were pissed that they weren't getting the resolutions. Ponies were fucking cheering that their fucking Call of Duty game was 900p as opposed to bots 720. Who the fuck in their right mind that even cares about resolution is happy that you're getting 900p? Who the fuck is happy about that? What PC gamer is happy about 900p? Who the fuck is happy about sub 1080p resolutions? Who? Ponies, you know why? Because it was high. It was a higher number than what Xbox was getting. And then when Xbox was getting 900p and the ponies were getting 1080 on their console, then they were happy. They were shitting on 900. It's like, this is the same 900 you were happy about. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because console gamers, and I'm not talking about PC gamers that have consoles. Console gamers never gave a fuck about frame rate or resolution in the first place. I'll take you all the way back to fucking Sega Master System and Super Nintendo. You guys didn't give a fuck about frame rate. You guys didn't give a fuck about resolution. You wanted to play those games and you loved those games and you didn't nitpick about things like that because you didn't fucking know. There was no internet. You didn't wake up one day and become an industry insider. You guys didn't know. But when people started to make that transition to PC gaming, not only did they have to learn how to build and configure their PCs, but they had to learn to optimize their games. Every PC gamer in the world got fucked when Crysis came out. We didn't know what to do. We couldn't do a goddamn thing to make that game run any faster. Crysis came out and fucked everybody in the ass. And we loved it. It was a great, I'm getting 15 frames a second. I got to turn everything low in order to get a steady 30. Crysis fucked everybody. And then when they came out the capability to put more than one card in your machine, it was still fucking people. But eventually they got Crysis to run the way it should be. But every PC game will tell you that Crysis fucked us. And we were talking resolutions, frame rate. You console gamers like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? This is why I game on console, so I don't have to worry about that shit. I heard it every fucking week. I heard it when I was doing the Warzone. You guys did not give a fuck about PC because you didn't want to worry about custom configurations and frame rates and overclocking. You didn't want to worry about that shit. Duly noted. I can respect that. Okay? I can respect that. So then last gen, your Lord and Savior, Mark Cerny, says, get ready for 1080p 60 gaming. And it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. What he should have said is, get ready for 1080p 60 gaming when we release the PlayStation 4 Pro. Get ready for 1080p 60 gaming when Microsoft releases the Xbox One X. Because it sure as fuck wasn't happening with those first-gen consoles. And then when they posted these articles where the developer says, our target frame rate is 30 frames per second. You guys were like, well, they want it to be cinematic. And they're trying to tell a story, so they want it to be 30 frames a second. I guarantee you, if all those fucking PlayStation exclusives, fucking Horizon, Uncharted, if they could have all been 1080p 60 out the gate, those developers would have made those games 1080 60. They couldn't. So instead of frame rate, which really technically isn't needed as much in a single player game as it is in a multiplayer game, but that's what they were stuck with. All they could do was 30 frames a second. When you see these developers making these games for PC, why are the PC games always 60 frames per second? Why is Sekiro 60 frames per second on PC? Because they wanted it to be fucking 60 frames per second. It's smoother. It's prettier to look at. But more so in multiplayer gaming, you need 60 frames per second. That's why your Call of Duties and your Halos on consoles were 60 frames per second, but sacrificed in resolution because they had to make sacrifices to get the 60 frames per second. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the fact that you're crying about this now, okay? You didn't get it last gen. You didn't get the simple 1080 60 last gen unless you bought a Pro or an Xbox One X years after the other consoles came out, which means you were selling your OG console and then buying another more expensive console just to get 1080p 60, and that's if the developer optimized the game to run on the new consoles. You didn't get it last gen. But now you want 4K 60 this gen on a $500 console. Rumored $500 consoles, you want 4K 60 this gen. And you want it on a fucking platter with a stack of $100 bills and a fucking naked chick handing you the platter. Well, why are you surprised? Okay? Ubisoft fucking knows that it's going to be a bitch to get this gorgeous running single player game at 4K 60 on these consoles. Now, Microsoft might be able to help them tweak it out a little bit and give them some APIs and tweaks and little secrets. Sony might be able to help them get it to run that way on these new consoles. But the reason why they're targeting this fucking 30 frames per second right now as a third-party developer is because, A, they got to make it for both consoles. B, they need to get this shit out by the end of the year. They're probably not going to have enough time to optimize it. And C, getting it to run at 60 frames per second at 4K. We're talking about Assassin's fucking Creed. Those games are fucking gorgeous. They're some of the most beautiful games ever created. Okay? And just to remind you, Red Dead Redemption 2 was killing people's fucking PCs at 4K 60. I welcome any PC gamer to please chime in and leave a comment on this video about how hard it is to get a game on ultra settings to run 4K 60 and what you had to do to get it, if any, to get it to run. It's a pain in the ass. I put fucking Red Dead Redemption 2 on my PC now. I got 16 gigs of RAM, GeForce Titan X. It's an older system, but it still rocks. It still kicks ass. Red Dead Redemption 2 ain't running at no 4K 60. I'm lucky to get 2K 60 on that shit. That game is very demanding. But you're asking developers to make these more demanding games with fucking ray tracing on top of it? And you're crying because they're not 4K 60? I'm telling you, here's what you need to get with these next-gen consoles. 1080p 60 ray tracing. All the features, all the shaboozle, all that shit. That's what you need, 1080p 60. I would much prefer 1080p 60 and just 4K upscale to fill my TV screen than native 4K with consoles. I don't need fucking 4K. Who the fuck asked for 4K? No gamer ever asked for 4K. We didn't ask for that. We just wanted 60 frames per second at 1080p. We never asked for 4 fucking K. We didn't ask Microsoft for that shit last gen. We didn't ask anybody for this shit this gen. How about you give us the most incredible looking games ever with a standard 1080p 60? If people want 4K, let their fucking 4K TVs or their consoles just do an upscale, but leave it native 1080p. You know, if you're sitting up here demanding that you need native 4K 60 frames per second, don't even buy a console. Start building a fucking PC with like 2 cards in it and 32 gigs of RAM and all the shebang, all that shit. If you want to get 4K 60, if you're lucky, okay? But don't sit here crying about fucking next gen not being 4K 60. I mean, and I'm assuming this right. You're crying because it's not 4K 60. When Ubisoft says 30 frames a second, they're talking 4K 30 frames per second. Why? Because that is a frame rate at native 4K that they can maintain with all the ray tracing and volumetric shadows and shading and all that fucking crazy shit. They can have all that on and do it at 30 frames a second. But if they try to do it at 60, the game might drop down to 45 frames a second or whatever. They can't have that. They want a sustained frame rate for these next-gen games because they're going to be fucking gorgeous. How dare you demand that you get 4K 60 standard on a $500 fucking console? A PC gamer needs to spend $500 on 2 cards. $500 each, that's $1,000 just on your GPU. Just to hope and pray you can get 4K 60 on a PC. And you want to pay $500 for a console box that can do 4K 60 standard, sustained, in your living room with ray tracing on. You get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. You guys crack me up. Just stop. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Stop assuming. Okay? If you don't know hardware, you don't understand hardware, why are you assuming that next gen's going to be 4K 60? Fuck that bullshit. Next gen's 1080 60. Okay? Now, if you buy a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X and you're noticing games are coming out that aren't even 1080p 60, sell the console and get a PC. Okay? Keep that energy. All right? And you know the beginnings of any generations fucking suck. We're already seeing videos for remasters. You already got the Tony Hawk remaster videos. More are coming. Because they're not going to be ready this fall with all their cool shit. Y'all are bitching about Inside Xbox. Let me ask you this. Would you have rather had an Inside Xbox? An Inside Xbox, not an E3 major event. An Inside, would you rather have that or not have had it? I would have rather had it just to see what's in the works, what's coming out. There's at least 5 or 6 next generation games that we all know about now because of that Inside Xbox. But y'all want to piss and cry because it wasn't a major fucking E3 level event. Y'all crack me up. You crack me the fuck up. The things that you get upset about are hilarious. You can't join together and become one group for the better of gaming, but you could sure sit there behind Twitter and piss and moan about the dumbest fucking shit that you don't even understand. Oh, it should be able to do 4K 60 because it's 12 teraflops. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. You guys are fucking tired.